That incense Joe, you in there? What is this, incense I smell?
Hey man, yeah. Listen, I'm getting started on a new project here. I've decided to start a cult.
What?
Yeah. I think that I've really found something worthy of my devotion, and I've decided to start a cult.
You doing like a tax scam, like a L. Ron Hubbard thing?
No. This is a legitimate belief in higher power, my friend. I really feel it in my bones. I do.
So I can't help but notice that life-size cutout of Jonathan Frakes and six pictures of Jonathan Frakes. What is going on here, man?
Yeah, so have you watched Partuition yet?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's evidence enough, right? Jonathan Frakes took an episode featuring Neelix and Tom Paris fighting over a space elf with a space lizard Muppet baby and managed to turn that into 44 minutes of watchable television. That is divine power. That is evidence of a god, and that god is Jonathan Frakes, Peter.
I don't know if this is a good idea, Joe. These cults are kind of touchy.
It was an episode with a giant space lizard alien and a Muppet lizard baby.
Yeah. Look. I'm trying to come up with holes to punch in this plan of yours, but
he made it watchable, Peter. He made it watchable for 44 minutes. He got good acting out of Garrett Wang. That's the power of a god.
I can't argue with you.
Oh, hey, you know what? If you want to join up, I think I've got a robe right over there for you.
Well, I got some. How did you know this was my? How'd you know to get the robe in this size?
The Frakes knows all, Peter. Join me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to V'ger Please, a hateful voyage for the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
I'm Peter.
Do you like the use of the in-track drop-in, Peter?
This is a garage sale of an episode, isn't it?
We're doing all sorts of stuff here.
I'm recording in the back of a pickup truck, and I'm wearing denim overalls, and I've got a piece of straw hanging out of my mouth. We're just hillbilly podcasters now.
I'm trying to find new ways to use the tools at our disposal, Peter. I'm doing my best. We'll see what works and what doesn't. It's part of the experimentation, my friend.
What's new over there, man?
Well, I was going into this one feeling the deepest dread. And I'd like to talk a little bit about my process in watching this episode. Because I think it's illustrative of where we stand as we try and endure season 2 of Voyager. After last week's journey into the darkness of the human soul that was twisted, I was not hopeful on this episode. And it just so happened that I had the coincidence of going up to Millersburg, Ohio in Holmes County, which you may know since you're also a lifetime Ohio resident, is the middle of Amish country, and visiting my wife's best friend, Jess, who's a huge fan of ours, one of our primary promoters and otherwise big pusher of our content. So shout out to Jess. And so we endeavored to watch the episode with her. Stevie, myself, and Jess, we all watched it together.
This is how you reward our fans, as you subject them to Voyager?
I show up at their house and make them watch it, Peter. That's what I do. I invite myself in, put it on, sit them down and say, now you have to take a look with me. Look into this. And an ominous first sign, it was the single episode of Voyager that Jess had never watched. It was on her Netflix, on Netflix you can see like where you've left off on different episodes or what you've watched.
Yeah.
This was the single episode of Voyager she had never seen. And it's just like, she attributed to like, it's just that image that you put up on the Facebook page. Like she saw that, and on some deep level, she's ever since like, this can't be good.
It's a
This has
powerful
to be.
image, man. Even having seen the episode, like I still can't shake. It puts a zap on you.
It does. And so we watched it together, and we were all kinds of ready to talk the maddest shit possible to try and endure what we thought for sure was going to be garbage from beginning to end.
Okay, so we're just starting this out. I really do love how it's the only episode you haven't watched.
Yeah,
Like,
so to
clarify, watch to the end, blank, watch to the end.
But look at Paris's face in the little icon. Even he's kind of like, oh.
There's two people who wanted to skip work today.
Let's peel the curtain back here for a second. We did a skit on this one, and when you asked me at first when we queued this up, what did I think of the episode? I said the exact same thing that the skit was about. Was I think that I can't give an honest opinion of this because I knew that Jonathan Frakes had directed it, and I can't tell if what I saw stood up on its own merit or if it's just a bias that Commander Riker was in the director's chair on this one for me.
I deeply respect that impulse because I had a similar feeling. So we watched it, and at first we were riffing hard on it, and then it sort of captured our attention enough that we stopped talking and we're just watching it. And we came away saying, "Oh, that was pretty good. I liked that." And on the drive home, it dawned on me that maybe it was really just the tyranny of low expectations combined with my love of the Frakes that maybe influenced my thoughts. So I actually made a point of watching it a second time.
You're
to
sadist.
see if
You're a masochist.
I'm dedicated to my craft, Peter. I give everything for this podcast, Peter. I give you everything. And
you're not going to be a young man forever, Joe. I would recommend you to not piss away your precious 30s rewatching Voyager episodes any more than you absolutely have to.
Right, we have embarked on the wrong hobby then. But after watching it a second time, I was like, okay, this wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible.
This wasn't good, but this wasn't Voyager.
This wasn't bad Voyager.
No, it was not bad Voyager. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it.
I will complete by saying one thought before we jump into it, and that is, I feel like this felt comfortably within that season 1 acceptable Voyager.
I'll agree.
That's
with that.
what it felt.
All but right. Here we are, season 2, episode 7. Why does Voyager have to have these complicated pain in the ass titles?
They got to come up with clever ways to title hundreds and hundreds of episodes of network TV. Not all of them are going to be winners.
This is Partuition. Partuition, which means the act of birth in Latin. Anyways, so episode opens up to Kes sitting at the helm of a shuttlecraft, and she's all stressed out. Next to her's Paris, and he doesn't seem to give a shit.
Well, this is definitely like hot, sweaty. These people are... Tom's filming something here. He's filming a special time with him and Kes. You know what I mean? He's making some moves.
Is he, though? Because, the plot of this episode will turn into that while he does develop feelings for Kes, that he's actively trying to avoid them, and this is kind of a situation that happens to him, not one that he goes out of his way to create.
Yeah, that's what he tells Harry Kim.
What's really going on here, though, is we're in a holodeck simulation, and for whatever reason, the one credible medic on the ship that is not a hologram and her half-ass understudy, which was Paris, who was supposed to be the original non-hologram medic, they're just further cross-pollinating their skills. So they will both be shuttlecraft pilots, and they will both be medics, and Voyager will continue to put all of its eggs in one basket. You've got hundreds of people, not hundreds. How many people? 100 and some?
100, God, I had this written down. I would say 120 to 140, somewhere in that range.
You got plenty of people, man. Spread these essential skills out. Quit double dipping people, multiple hats on them.
Especially because the shuttles, as we have established and will further establish in this episode, are fucking death traps. So this is a legit, terribly dangerous profession to be embarking on.
Mm-hmm. The big takeaway from this scene is, you know, the shuttle rocks. Kess ends up in Paris's lap. The line of the show, I think, comes out pretty early here, and that's clogging someone's plasma injectors is a dirty trick.
I wrote that down too.
That's like space sailor language for like, yeah, you gave me syphilis and now my urethral.
Well, that's why I've got the porno vibe where he's like, dirty tricks are my job as your instructor. You know, like they're getting this real intimate vibe in here. And I know Tom claims that it wasn't intended, but he seems to be enjoying his sweaty close encounter
with a 2-year-old.
A lot. Yeah, a lot. He's enjoying it a lot.
Well, they wrap up. They head out of the holodeck, with a lot of camaraderie. And of course, there's fucking Neelix lurking behind the archway of the holodeck, peering on like a stalker. This episode, and we've talked about Neelix's abusive relationship at length at this point. This episode exists solely for 2 reasons. One is to give Paris some screen time because producers thought that he didn't get enough in season 1. And 2 is to finally lay this goddamn Neelix, Paris, Kess love triangle horseshit to an end. So I'm not happy to see more of the green-eyed Neelix return, but knowing that it's going to be the last one gave me hope.
I liked the clever camera shot that they used for the reveal that he was kind of lurking near the entrance of the holodeck, because it pans over as Kess and Tom leave and then pans back and it shows that he was standing off to the other side.
I'm not a cinematography professional, and I've only really started paying attention to shot presentation and stuff like that since we started doing this podcast. But I will say that there is a very standard way that Star Trek is presented to viewers, very static, fixed shots of traditional angles of scenes. Frakes, from what I've seen so far, consistently breaks away from that Star Trek tradition for production, and I would say always does very interesting camera work. So great call out on that.
I absolutely agree with your assessment, and on both ends. All the house guys that they have that direct a lot of these episodes shoot real flat angles, like you said, real same traditional kinds of shot, reverse shot, whatever. And Frakes always stands out when he's doing something because he does like inventive camera work, which it's a shame no one else has really learned from his example.
I'm not saying that the traditional Star Trek shots are bad, though. I recognize them for what they are, and I think that they work well for this season. It keeps the attention on the actors, it keeps the attention on the plot, and it also usually provides a pretty good chance to check out props. They're boring, but I think they serve the purpose well. And obviously TV's advanced as a whole past the director type style that we've seen from TNG era stuff. But for what it is, I appreciate it. And it's funny because when you watch the Orville, right, they use all of that stuff. And I think that's kind of what endears Orville to me, again, is that non-tangible Trekness in its DNA.
And, the fact that they've got a lot of those guys producing and directing on that show is why.
Sure.
So it makes sense. We get a quick scene with Janeway and Chakotay talking about how they're running out of food. They're at 30% of food reserves, and Chakotay has found a planet that potentially should have life based on the chemical readings coming from it, but it's a little out of their way, and on top of it, it's got some weird shit going on in the atmosphere that they can't actually confirm it has plant life.
I got a real good laugh out of this scene because by out of the way, he means 24 hours, like one whole day. Like that is even a drop in the bucket of the amount of fucking around that Voyager has done up to this point, going off course and straying from the mission of getting home. I appreciate the episode, like calling attention to that, they're cognizant of this stuff, but everything we've seen in the 8 months of Voyager's voyage home at this point, who gives a shit? For them to make it seem like one day is a big deal is a good laugh. But, and again, I don't know if this is part of Jonathan Frakes' impact on the episode. I don't know if it's because Michael Piller, who's one of the producers, did a rewrite on this episode. But they're really starting to touch on certain elements, which we have, again, spoken on at length. replicator rations versus food stocks, the criticalness of limited supplies, that kind of stuff. And this episode will go on to touch on not only their fresh food supplies running low, but further reinforce that in the post scarcity society of the 24th century, that here on Voyager, we've returned to the old ways. There is commodity trade. There is limited good. Replicator materials are being rationed out, and you can have good comfort foods or you can have physical items. And if you're going to, blow your replicator savings on, like Harry Kim did, a clarinet, or Paris did last episode or 2 episodes ago on that. Now it was twisted, that locket, that gold locket. Then you get stuck eating cat food.
It's I love that you just brought that up, because of course we're going next into the Harry Kim Tom Paris scene in Harry's quarters. Something I wish I had looked up. Does Garrett Wang actually play the clarinet?
I have in my notes, he can't act for shit. Is that what locked in his role as Harry Kim? They were just like the unnamed ops person. All we've got on paper about them is that they remember coming out of the womb and that they can play the clarinet. So I don't care who it is, guy or girl, white dude, black guy, Asian, whatever, just needs to have clarinet skills. And if you can play the clarinet and fit into this jumpsuit, you got the job.
I don't know if he can, but they certainly, the way they shot in close him playing it, it certainly looked like he can.
I think he can. And I have to wonder if this is the spirit of Riker bleeding through in this Frakes episode.
Oh yeah, getting that sweet saxophone music right in there. And speaking of Garrett Wang's inability...
sax.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You're right. I associate sexiness with Riker.
You're going to call me out on not knowing that Paris was the head of United Federation of Planets. I'm going to point out that you don't know what instrument Riker plays, and you're over there founding this fucking cult. You're a sham, sir.
Okay, hold on. All right, let's play this game, bruh. What is the song that Troy asks Will Riker to play in the episode where he finds his transporter double that he is terrible at playing and tries to avoid playing? What is it? Because I know it.
That would be...
He's doing his concert.
That would be Slam by Onyx.
It's Nightbird, motherfucker. Look at what I know about Will Riker. Because I'm the head of his cult.
Mm-hmm. You have carefully prepared facts that you're pulling out at your own discretion, but when encountering questions in the wild, you're failing. I'm not going to let you slide on this.
You know what I will let slide, though? Yeah, all of non sequitur, because Garrett Wang, apparently a part of Jonathan Frakes' magical divine ability is to get him to act.
Not him to act, but him to act with Paris in a role of friendship and camaraderie that should have been the backbone of non sequitur, and they didn't get anywhere near it. And in this 2-minute stint, I think they do a great job of fleshing out the friendship we've got going on here.
They fucking do. It's amazing how much better their interaction is, and how much more I can be like, yeah, these guys are bros, or there's a broness that's developing here. And like Garrett Wang in particular, who was so fucking bad in his Spotlight episode where he got to be the Mary Sue all-action hero, in the 2 minutes that he has in this scene is good.
Something that
he's broing down. He's throwing some advice down there for Tom. He's putting out some harsh judgments. He's being trolly with his clarinet. I mean, it made me like him.
Yeah, I agree completely. What did kind of stick out weird though was that Kim calls Tom Paris just Paris, which seems weirdly locker room setting for. I don't know. If they're friends, I don't see why he wouldn't just be calling him Tom, but that's me being petty. Anyways, so Paris is in there because it's finally sunk in that he's got a crush on Kes. And again, if we're going to, directly compare this to non sequitur, not only are we seeing a great friendship exchange here, but we're also seeing the man that Tom Paris wants to be versus the Tom Paris that would be had he never gone off onto Voyager. And Tom says, hey, look, I got feelings for Kes. I don't want to have feelings for Kes. She's taken, and I don't want to be, Sancho. I don't want to be the other guy who's, home wrecking. Not that Kes and Neelix have a home. They live in separate fucking apartments. But, here's this conundrum I have on my hands. And Kim gives him some. What was Kim's advice exactly? Just leave her alone.
Really just says like, dude, you do this to yourself. Like you like it. You like being in these kinds of positions. You need to just back off. And it isn't a lot so much of advice, so much as just, quit it. just fucking don't, dude. But it's not so much the advice or anything that's like direction that's given in the scene. It's just good buddy time. Like it makes you see that these guys are friends in a way that you're like, oh, I buy that now. I'm buying it. Especially when he starts, Kim starts trolling him with what he decides to play on the clarinet. That's good. I like that. That's good. Circle that, put check mark next to it. Good. Done.
My biggest problem with this scene, him calling him by the name Paris was a little awkward, but it is nothing. And I mean nothing compared to the creep out factor I got watching Kim playing this clarinet and looking Paris directly in the eye while blowing on this thing. Did you catch that at all too?
I saw it, but I saw it as a gotcha, bitch. You wanted something, sorrowful, and I'm gonna play a happy fucking tune.
Maybe I don't know enough people who play instruments that looking people in the eye as you play, especially the clarinet of all instruments. Like, I don't know, just creep me out. I wanted nothing to do with that part. If I was Paris, I might have shoved him out of the way and just got the hell out of there. But like, look, dude, before I know you're gonna start talking about your creepy womb adventures and God knows whatever else. I know.
Oh, come on. Tom's got no ground to stand on there. He's freaking snuck up on him in bed, touched on him, and then brought him to his jack-off den. Come on.
Tom, who broke into Kim's apartment and like creeped up on him and touched him and took him to see his flashlights. All that being said and done, I think even, then Kim's eye contact, way more creepy.
Well, the next scene is it's a quick, awkward Neelix-Kess dinner, and it's just setting the stage for Neelix's obvious continued discomfort with what's going on with Tom and Kess's closeness. We get data on the planet that they're headed to. Two things. One, it's got an atmosphere that's going to be very irritating to human skin. So the doctor calls up and says, by the way, I spy on everyone and I heard your conversation, so I'm totally making like an ointment so that whoever goes down there won't, come down with a terrible case of skin rash.
And Janeway's got beef with that. They have a whole little thing about it. She's like, well, how often do you, listen in on this? And he's like, well, look, EMS protocol is when I am active, it's usually an emergency, or it should be an emergency, and I have access to all the key communication backbones of the ship. So if there's a problem, I know where to go and, help fix shit. And she gets all bent out of shape about it. And it's like, look, you're terrible at communicating with the crew, especially the guy who's supposed to be your doctor. But chill out.
Yeah, it's unnecessarily bitchy, but maybe it's another window into the fact that Janeway has actually shown some consistent discomfort with the doctor being a person. And so it's why he's not being consulted in the first place, which is what leads to the conversation, and kind of just treats him like a toaster, which is ultimately what she was thinking he was, until it was Cass who really talked her into thinking that he's not a toaster. So I call it continuity, but it is pretty bitchy ever.
I agree, it's continuity as well, but it just seemed awkward for her to take. Again, when they're in the danger zone of the Delta Quadrant, I would think the more communication of the ship, the better. Regardless, I think it's cool that, again, they continue to flesh out Federation technologies and operating protocols and stuff like that.
Well, one consistent Federation technology and protocol is that they get to the planet, and of course, because there's electromagnetic interference, the transporters don't work, and communication will be spotty, which is like the plot of, I want to say, 68.2% of all episodes of Star Trek.
You're right, but I think we can assume, we talked about this last season, that when you're watching Star Trek, there is an assumption that there's a lot of stuff you don't see, and that's the boring things that aren't worthy of an episode. And that, if we're to look in the life of these people on a starship, that it's going to be the time things aren't running smoothly that should.
Oh, no. I get that, but all I'm saying is a little bit more creativity on the part of the writers of explaining why the magic MacGuffin technology isn't going to help them this time would be appreciated now and then. I guess that's a
Here-
little much to ask.
Here's
but-
what I want. Instead of it always being our amazing, if the Federation is to be defined by one quality, well, several qualities, enlightenment, all that other stuff, but, superior technology. Instead of your superior technology never being able to cut it, you've got this starship that was not equipped to go out and do what it's doing currently, and that's, long range deep space exploration, didn't have the right surplus and supplies. Instead of it always being, hey, our ship running at peak can't tackle this stuff. Fuck, we're still having sensor issues. There's not enough materials to go around. We've been attacked several times. Like, Voyager's limping along. We're having problems, and normally we'd be able to bang this shit out, but unfortunately, shit's on the fritz.
Yeah, I completely agree. That would be a more compelling way to approach it than for plot device reasons, our normal things don't work. Totally 100% agree. That would be an in-character, in-universe, for this show specific explanation that would have worked better. But we got what we got. And speaking of what we get, and I'm going to call it probably the best food fight related scene in all of Berman Trek history.
Prior to this scene, we had never had a food fight where you had wet food hitting a uniform, because these uniforms, I'm sure, cost an arm and a leg to clean. So up to this point, anytime anybody's ever thrown food at someone else, it's always been dry. And when we get to the point where Neelix finally, his jealousy boils over and he throws a plate of spaghetti onto Paris, and then Paris reciprocates, that is the first time in Star Trek history that you ever have something wet staining a uniform.
And then they start trading blows, and they get into a grapple and roll across a table in front of a bunch of extras, and are just really hammering away at each other. Neelix says, "I'm gonna kill you!"
Which escalates it pretty quickly there.
Yeah, Tom's cracking wise, your hair pasta would have done it the trick anyway. But Neelix escalates to space cat murder.
It's a real cat fight, man. They're pulling hair and scratching, and it's a little cat ball. It should have been two girls fighting on the floor. So what happens here is Kim and Paris show up. This is where we get the screen grab. The terrible, awkward smile, because they go in, they see Kes sitting at a table alone. Kim's like, just don't even sit by her, don't even acknowledge her presence. You need to check out of this situation. And then Kim gets called off to the bridge. So it's Paris sitting at a table alone, Kes sitting at a table alone. Kes walks out without even talking, and then Neelix comes over. You guys think you can get one over on me, and that's when he shoves the plate of spaghetti on him. Both of those two then get called to Janeway's ready room, and they both snap out of this fight, and they're like, oh shit, mommy's gonna find out we've been bad. We're both covered in fucking spaghetti here, which I would think that the Federation Advanced Technologies would have built Scotch Guard, some sort of 3M anti-stain product, into the uniforms, but they did not. So they both end up in front of Janeway covered in spaghetti. And it was this scene specifically that made me go back and reevaluate, why are Kes and Neelix not in Starfleet uniforms?
By all means, if you want to explore that thought, because I have a lot that I want to say about the Janeway scene, but that's a worthy topic. I can't explain that really.
Again, you picked up all these fucking Maquis terrorists, specific Federation criminals. And sure, some of them used to be Federation cutouts. Torres, Chakotay, I'm sure there's a couple other ones knocking around in there. You've got Tom Paris, who was court-martialed. All these guys are plopped back in uniforms. But,
in officer positions too. Not just in uniform, but legit line officers too.
And they'll go through, and we'll discuss in this episode, Neelix says several times, I might not like you, Paris, but if you make an order, I will obey it. Neelix is a functioning member of the crew. Neelix is beholden to the Starfleet power structure. Why does he keep getting in these ugly discount African king costumes instead of and the same for Kes? I don't know.
It makes no sense to me, aside from they wanted some visual, variety.
Of course. It's the same reason, how Marina Sirtis, well, I'm sure was different for...
There were two very other compelling reasons why Marina Sirtis was not wearing a Starfleet uniform that I think we both are thinking of.
And it's the same reason why
Fantastic reasons.
Same reason why 7 and 9 doesn't end up in a jumpsuit later on too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Out of character, it makes great sense. In character, it's stupid. But anyways, so yeah. You got Janeway, you got these two guys standing in front of her. She had called them both into the ready room because and since they can't use the transporters and they don't want to just, bring the entire ship down into the atmosphere, which, spoiler alert, they fucking do anyways. She decides she wants to put two guys in a shuttle for what is now the third shuttlecraft episode for the second season and what will become our fifth shuttlecraft accident episode in total, because I'm keeping count.
So I want to say for this, I love this scene. This is my favorite scene in the whole episode. Because they do, once again, we get a Frakes shot. He shoots half the scene high from like above Neelix and Tom Paris's shoulders, and you get this great like tracking shot of Janeway's just contempt for whatever they were fighting over. She has this perfect disappointed mom / angry supervisor look, sipping on her coffee. Just, she one point says, am I detecting that there's a personal problem between the two of you? Clearly she knows there is, she's trolling him. Yeah. She sees him when they come in and like asks why they're covered in spaghetti, and Tom kind of says it's going to be too much to talk about. The whole thing is shot in an interesting way visually, and then B, it's just sparsely done with the dialogue with Janeway in a way of like, no, I've got a million problems on this fucking ship. I don't know why you two have fucking spaghetti on each other, but you're going to get this fucking job done and you're going to figure it out. Now go, get the fuck out of here.
All right, so she's briefing these guys. It is impossible for her not to know that there is some relationship jealousy drama going on, because you got Neelix directly going to Chakotay with this shit. Like, he has talked to everybody on this ship about his jealousy issues so far. For her not to be aware is unfathomable. And set aside the cheeky funness and all that other stuff, it comes along with the Frakes episode. And let's hold this to the standard of a ship lost in space with limited resources and all that jazz. You're about to put two people in a shuttlecraft, which has a terrible track record as far as this Voyager operation has gone. A life-threatening situation of a shuttlecraft with limited communication going through God knows what to land on a planet that you don't know what's down there. Why risk the crew? Why risk the ship? Why risk everything with such an obvious bad pairing? Like, yeah, okay, this might be a chance for these guys to get past whatever shit they're working through. On a light duty, if a cargo bay needs the deck mopped, sure, that's when you put people who there's going to be some sort of a fight or whatever. Not mission critical stuff where their lives are literally on the line. Like, it's such bad leadership and management on Janeway's side. It's amazing.
I'm gonna say that it's not what I would call certain that Janeway would know about any of the relationship drama. It's not like Chakotay's like gonna gossip about every detail of everyone's personal lives to him, let alone that she would know that it's Tom Paris that is the object of Neelix's jealousy.
Isn't that Chakotay's job though, is to monitor cruise shit and let
yeah, but we just established that Neelix is kind of being treated as this other. He never brings up in Twisted that it's Tom Paris that he's worried about. This is all probably new information. So I think you're being a little harsh on Janeway here. There's no reason for her to know before this point that those two got beef, or that Neelix even has jealousy problems with anybody.
Bullshit, man. They were there together in the Kess's hologram birthday party. Like, everybody has seen the obvious jealousy on whatever. Anyways, so she tells them, you guys are going down to the surface and to pull their heads out of their asses and fix this stuff. So the next scene is a bad luck committee composed of Neelix and Paris in a death trap shuttle.
You're skipping an awesome scene, Peter, where Cass finds out that Neelix and Paris fought over her. Mm-hmm. And so she rampages into the doctor's office, obviously pissed off about it. And then we find out that even in the Delta Quadrant, even in the 24th century, when a woman says she's fine, she is not fine.
It's fine. Fine doesn't mean fine. The scale goes great, good, okay, not okay, I hate you, fine.
And I died laughing. She comes in and she's like, I'm fine. And the doctor's like, really? He's like, no, I'm fine. Like, oh, this is great. This is great. There's certain things that don't change. This is one of them. You can be a Mayfly Space Elf 400 years in the future. If your woman says she's fine, she's not fucking fine. Run for your fucking life.
This is also a scene where you see that the doctor is aware that Paris has this love triangle going on. So you now have the doctor with a better emotional IQ than Janeway.
But he's also like a semi like omniscient into everyone's health stuff. Like he's mentioned, it's like every time he noticed he had these physiological reactions because that's what he's programmed to do. This is not something
let's split the difference. Unlike Janeway, he is not a fucking moron who
so hard.
intentionally sabotages their only way of getting home. And let's just acknowledge the fact that Janeway's got some learning difficulties from time to time, and this is one of those manifestations. They're on the death trap. Standout line here is Neelix actually saying the words technobabble as Paris is giving a flight recorder status, even though they have lost contact with Voyager. There's some ongoing hostilities. They make the agreement, we're going to leave our beef on the ship, and then, lo and behold, what could possibly happen to a Voyager shuttlecraft that has been cut off from communication with Voyager? You got dun 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 ready to go?
Oh, you know it.
Hit it, Joe. The shuttle crashes.
I know. And, they have that sort of, what's going to happen, but they start trying to, like, build the danger up a little bit. Like, we've got problems. We've got this, like, the fucking flux capacitor is loose, and all of a sudden, we got to look out. Oh, no, we're going to crash. It's going to be terrible. It's that false sense of danger, is never real. I fucking hate that. Like, the lack of creativity is not from this episode, though. It's just Star Trek in general. How many times have we seen that?
I mean, I would say at this point, the shuttlecraft crashing is just the Cardassian hallway of Voyager moving the plot along. It is a connective tissue between two scenes that gets you from point A to point B, and point B repeatedly needs to be people stranded on the surface in peril. And you know what? That's fine. Whatever.
Let's make a prediction.
How many shuttlecraft accidents are we going to suffer in total for Voyager? Or are we going to go
over 7 seasons? Yeah. How many do you think we're going to see total? From given that we've already seen
5.
5, you say?
3 in this season.
3 in the season. 5 total shuttlecraft accidents. 3 in this season. How many more shuttlecraft accidents between now and the end of season 7 will we see? My guess is going to be 20 total, so at least 15 more.
I was going to go with 20 as well. Okay, so you're going to say we're going to set the mark at 20. Let me write this down. 20 prediction. I will say that there will be less. That's how I'm going to calibrate this. But I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be a little shy of 20 in total.
Okay, I think those are fair guesses. Because, you think about the frequency that they're going to be doing it at. Oh, God, that could be too little, though. Because
they're going to bring out the Delta Flyer, and that's going to become a big set piece, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And that's going to probably limit how many you're going to lose in the later seasons.
Are we saying that these have to be full-on destroyed shuttle accidents, or merely, hey, the thing's fucked up and it can't get back on the ground without serious work?
I'm going to say just like what we're saying, like danger zone, danger room situations.
So you want to go disasters.
Yeah, like the shuttle is a dangerous thing. It doesn't... I think we can use our judgment to decide what qualifies. Obviously, any situation where the shuttle is destroyed or seriously damaged is what we're talking about. Yeah.
I would say catastrophic shuttle accidents, not, little...
Not necessarily total destruction, but at least something close or very nearly so.
I will go a little under 20, but 20 was going to be my original thought on that as well.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling good about that, yeah.
This is a good crash landing, though. As far as these shuttlecraft, you don't obviously get to see the thing, skipping along the surface because that's special effects money. But whereas normally we just catch people laying on the floor rubbing their head like, this shuttlecraft is fucked. Like, nose is in the ground. They took the window, the front, windshield basically, and they filled dirt up on the side, so it looks like this thing's like dug into the ground like a shovel at an awkward angle. And Paris and Neelix, and I want to point out there was this conversation specifically where Neelix says, you can shove your opinions up your ass, but I will listen to your orders, and you are the mission commander, and I am following orders, which is all put his ass in a uniform, whatever. So they start scratching at themselves like a couple of Chappelle show quality crackheads. Because he's like scratching at his jaw and on the back of his head and like their elbows. It's like, Joe Rogan, I smoke rock.
Hey, you got it? You got any of those Quality Voyager episodes?
Yeah. Paris is like, look, man, we got to find food. And then Neelix is like, well, you Starfleet types, you're too good for so much of your food. And he's like, well, yeah, your food's terrible. And he's like, Paris, I'm gonna tell you something. This will not be the first time that I've had a horse penis in my mouth. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, that works in that. Neelix doesn't turn his nose up. Neelix eats like a crackhead. That works. That's canon in my head now.
Well, I mean, they get a lot of good dialogue throughout the rest of their time on the planet here of Tom throwing a little bit of dirt on Neelix, and Neelix being like, yeah, guess what? I used to live in filth. I used to live in garbage. That was my life. You want to fight about it? He's like Irish all of a sudden. He's like, yeah, let's do that. Let's go, bro. Let's do it. I'll scratch your eyes out.
So taking a step back here, as sick as I am of Neelix and Paris and their love triangle, there is, I think, some pretty good actor chemistry between these two guys, and the dialogue moves fluidly. It moves well. I would say it's very plausible, and that I buy into this antagonism, this mutual antagonism. It's certainly Neelix leading the charge on this thing, with Tom playing a little bit more defensively. But for the next couple scenes, it's going to be these two guys exclusively, and it works well. They make the decision that the shuttlecraft is taking on atmosphere, that they're going to start being, and this is like where the worst science of the episode comes out of here. There's a little leak, and instead of just sealing the leak on the shuttlecraft so it quits letting this poisonous atmosphere in, they're going to leave for whatever reason and arguably make it harder for Voyager to find them when they get down. They beeline it through Planet Hell. It's, our classic Star Trek cave series that we always use for these types of shots. And they end up at a cave network where they go into the cave where there should be itchy air. They turn around. They shoot the cave entrance with phasers for some fucking reason. Boulders fall. I've looked at rocks that have dropped before. It is not an airtight seal by any stretch of the imagination, yet the reason for shooting the door shut is to seal off the bad air.
Yeah, let's trap ourselves in a place that, by definition, would have to only contain the thing that is bothering us. Yeah, it's totally a baffling non-explanation as to why this would work. And then they get some sweet glow rocks, shoot those up.
I love glow rocks. Anytime they shoot a phaser, they shoot a rock with a phaser and like superheat it for heat. I always eat that shit up with a spoon. Let me pose something to you here, all right? Because I'm thinking about this. What a terrible fucking situation this is. You've got Neelix, who has been openly hostile towards Paris for a long time now, right?
Right.
Who is really becoming a pain in the ass. You've got Paris, who Neelix believe is all about his girl, and the only thing between Paris and his girl is Neelix, right?
Right.
They go down on a planet where nobody knows what's going on. The ship crashes that Paris was flying, and Paris makes the call, let's get away from the Federation technology. Let's make it harder to find us. Let's go off on this uncalled for exploration for a mission that should have been aborted into a remote cave where I'm now going to seal you in. And even though, Paris has shown no ill intent or anger or really anything. He's been very reactive to Neelix, but he hasn't been like proactively hostile. What point does it click in Neelix's head? Like, this dude's just been biding his time, and he is now taking me off to a remote cave to fucking murder me and leave me in an unmarked grave so he can then return back to the shuttle and say that I ran off like I always do because I'm a stupid space cat who gets my lungs stolen. And he's going to leave me dead on this planet to go back to the ship and F my girlfriend.
If Snarf had that level of self-preservation, we would be dealing with an entirely different show.
But I mean, like in any other context, any other show, you got someone who's like just all it takes is a little bit of sinister music in the background here, and like this is a horrifying situation. Paris is totally dragging him off to fucking kill him, to go, shoot him in the back of the head behind the barn.
We watch too much HBO or stuff like the golden age of television where everyone is shitty has leaked into our minds, because you're right. Like, that's what I would think, but that's because I watched a lot of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the point where, like, he's like, you can't, these falling rocks, they're not going to keep the air out. All this is going to do is keep me from running away. What?
Oh, I should have saved the RZA music for that moment. Like, all of a sudden, that realization comes into play, starts panicking, starts trying to get up the walls, like the filthy space cat he is, trying to go from a high place and scratch at his face, feels the danger. That's all right. That isn't what happens, though. They have some continuation of their good dialogue.
Let's talk about Paris's dad being an instructor at Starfleet.
Yeah, Admiral Paris, who we will get to know quite well later on in this series, believe it or not. Admiral Owen Paris. He's just kind of been mentioned in passing so far. This is a real first, like, serious background information.
I think Janeway said that she respected him immensely, and that's part of the reason why she pulled the stunt with Paris, was to basically... Well, wasn't he, like, Janeway's mentor?
Yeah, he's Janeway's mentor and former commanding officer. So she was posted up to a ship that he was the captain of before he was an admiral.
But anyway, so for at least one term, Paris's dad was instructor for a Federation Starfleet survival class. And what I thought was some pretty cool dialogue, because, Neelix is basically second-guessing everything that Paris is trying to have him do, starting with the decision to move away from the safety of the shuttlecraft. Paris reveals that he got, a B- in the class?
That is correct.
Which, Neelix kind of ribs him on a little bit, and then, he mentions that his dad taught it. And what I thought was kind of the beginning of the healing phase of the Paris-Neelix drama. Neelix is like, wow, your dad, gave you a shitty grade. That kind of sucks. And I think things start falling into place a little bit, that maybe Paris isn't the despicable piece of shit that Neelix just wants to frame him as, and that, there might be someone with their own issues they're working through.
Yeah, I agree. The humanizing dialogue like that
goes a long way.
Goes a long way in any interaction you've had in your real life. When you get to know somebody a little bit, suddenly, if even your hostility starts to melt away. Like, not to get too real, but this is what happens, on the internet. You get into fights, it's this impersonal, sometimes anonymous, back and forth. So you just get vicious. But when you're in person, when it's somebody that your whole mode of interaction changes, right? So that makes sense in context of the scenes where they don't know each other, right? They've been on this ship for a few months, but it's clear they don't have a lot of intersection with their jobs. So this is probably the most time they've ever spent in the same place.
Despite Neelix's best efforts to, get on the bridge with snacks during red alerts.
Hey, he brings those clutch meatball hors d'oeuvres when they've got phaser fire, which it's a real refreshing add to an Intrepid class vessel.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, on Voyager, they're just getting shot at by some dudes. They try and talk to him, and they just don't. And they take up a sort of like a defensive posture, and it essentially is obviously trying to prevent them from doing anything with the planet. But they don't talk to him, and you don't see him actually until the very, very end, which I thought was a clever subversion of the trope. Like, we've talked about some of the other Star Trek tropes that are like stupid or boring or predictable that we've experienced so far in this episode. This was actually a trope breaker. We don't see the alien. They don't explain their motives. They just show up and start shooting, and they're just kind of left to interpret what's going on and what they should do next.
And for everyone who gives a shit out there, Tuvok says that their weapons are about on par with what Voyager's rocking there. So they kind of formulate a plan knowing that it would be an equal fight and that they can't just shove past these guys. Not that the limp-wristed crew would ever dream of, just forcing their way through a situation that wasn't a subspace hole to phallically jam the ship through. But
Tuvok does come up with like an idea to fight them, and I don't know if you noticed, but Chakotay totally like big dogs him in that conversation, like interrupts him to like say what his like grand idea was going to be right in front of him. It's a little bit of that Chakotay not liking Tuvok canon that was like the only part of Twisted that we liked.
It's funny because we went through, I was listening to some of our back episodes, and I caught Harry Kim Can't Lose, and we said that that Chakotay was going to be the worst part of Twisted. That was our prediction. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I would say that Chakotay was hands down the best part of that fucking episode. Like, if they keep the sass angle going on Chakotay and ramp up his cattiness, the eye rolls and little stunts like this, I think we can really turn this character around.
It gives him personality.
Yeah.
Like, that's what was missing in the first season.
Less Indian bullshit, more high school drama.
Bullshit.
Yeah. A mean girl.
Yes. On the surface, we finally arrive at really what the episode was teased to be, but I was still unprepared for. They detect a life form in the cave. They find the life form.
Where Neelix should have been shitting his pants that Paris dragged him there to kill them.
Right.
They should now both be shitting their pants as they come up on, for all intents and purposes, the egg scene from Alien.
So, seeing as this is Star Trek and not, any other science fiction genre, instead of a facehugger or weird alien impregnation fly or some other like Cronenberg-esque body horror shit, what we have that hatches from the egg.
Hatches like Jurassic Park style. Like them hunched over like, oh, come on, little guy, push.
Nice John Hammond.
John Hammond, thank you.
I like those good.
I'm big on Jurassic Park. We're actually going to go see the new movie Monday. I'm terrified that is going to be.
I heard it's dog shit, my friend. Good luck.
I've heard it too, but
hey, you can't help what you love, man. I get it. Look what we're doing. So
they got their faces right up in this fucking egg because what could go wrong.
And what comes out is this adorable yet 100% out of place Muppet of a baby reptile alien. It straight up looks like, did you ever see the show Dinosaurs?
Yes. Not the mama. That's what I got in my fucking notes.
Yes. Not the mama, not the mama, not the mama, not the mama, not the mama.
Not
alien
the mama.
eggs, not the mama. It's like if you took the baby from Dinosaurs and made it a little bit more Jurassic Park raptory. It looked like the mom from Dinosaurs.
Yeah, I immediately thought of the baby. I didn't think of the mom, but yeah, look, not the mama. It's exactly not the mama.
Yeah,
God damn, you have skills relating to 90s pop culture vocal inflection that I didn't know you had, Peter. Yeah. This has been a shocking hour for me. I've learned so much.
I talk to myself a lot in the car, and sometimes I forget my wife's in there when I'm just making noises or whatever. And she's like, what would you do if someone ever recorded this? And I'm like, probably kill that person and burn that tape so don't get any ideas.
That makes me worried about my safety. Anyway, so it's difficult to describe when this thing comes out of the egg, because this straight up looks like a sketch from The Muppet Show. It's where this belongs now.
This is like you're walking along through a parking lot and everything's going okay. I mean, it's not great because you're just a dude walking through a parking lot. How excited can that be? And you're wearing flip flops. No, you're not wearing flip flops. You're wearing tennis shoes, and you're not paying attention. And you kick one of those concrete yellow bricks that tell the cars where they should stop. You know what I'm talking about in front of parking spaces. You kick this thing and you stumble, and you don't know. You're like, did I just hurt my foot? Does this suck? Should I be pissed off? Because I'm standing there watching this thing. I'm like, are you shitting me? This fucking dinosaur from not the mama just popped out of an egg in Star Trek in a fucking Tom Paris Neelix buddy cop episode. And I honestly, I didn't know how to feel about it. I'm like, my logical part of me should say, this is fucking terrible. Get my cat's claws out and rip this thing to fucking shreds, because now I'm watching Muppet Babies. I'm literally watching Muppet Babies. But then like the emotional side of me is like, this isn't terrible. So I'm like, I'm in this weird shell shock, and I'm watching the rest of the episode from this point forward. I'm like, I do not know if I hate this. And it was the first time it's really, I've been muddled. I've been stunned in a Voyager episode.
I completely share your belief. Like, it's such an unbelievably weird prop. Even though it's well made, it's a good puppet, but it just doesn't belong in Star Trek. It's the weirdest, out of place thing I can recall seeing outside of some of the just bizarre shit they did in early TNG.
It's completely out of place, man. It's like Paris just opened up a backpack and pulled a strap-on dildo out and belted it onto his forehead and just proceeded forward like nothing's going on. I'm just watching. I'm like, am I?
But like you said, like it still, the episode doesn't like fall off the rails.
Yeah,
it still stays compelling and interesting from that point forward. And you're like,
you've got shoes on, so it didn't break your foot, didn't even really stub your toe, but you're just like, should I be pissed off right now? I don't know. And you just keep watching, and to its credit, like you said, it's a great puppet. I think I read it took like something like 8 or 9 puppeteers to animate this thing.
Bravo, good looking, and they do a great job animating it. It just and it's weird to say that it feels out of place in a show where rubber-faced aliens are common.
It's this reverse uncanny valley where it's like what should be a shitty rubber puppet is instead something very intricate. So it's like it's too good for the shit thing it should be. Yeah, like it should have been a guy with like just their hand in a sock moving up and down. Again, so we just talked about like Jurassic Park. When Jurassic World came out, they had these toys. They were like hand puppets, these foam core hand puppets for like Tyrannosaurus and a raptor. And you just put your hand in there and your thumb moves the jaw up and down. They're really simple, but they are terrifying. I'll post a picture of this thing. Like, and because I'm a piece of shit and I got my daughter, right?
Oh, no.
I can't help but, part of me wants to, I'm not going to use the word torment. We've introduced her to it. Like, and you just get a blanket and wrap it up, and this thing just looks like a baby, like the way that Neelix moves it around, and it's convincing. That is what they should have had, was just a little hand puppet in there, and instead they got this Terminator quality mega puppet.
So, and the therapist bills that your child is going to have. So,
I'll tell you what, when I get it in, I'll put this raptor puppet in a Starfleet uniform. I'll show you. It's pretty sweet.
Hell yes.
So they get out the jump to conclusion, Matt, instantly. This thing cracks out. It does not latch itself around anybody's face and then start choking with the tail. It does not flare, ornate organic ribbons at its gills and like start spitting acid in people's face. It's just this little baby chilling out. They roll out the biological conjecture, jump to conclusion, Matt, and come to the establishment that, or the conclusion that they cannot abandon this thing that was abandoned in a cave because the mother might not accept it back and blah, blah, blah. And basically they saddle themselves with the responsibility of keeping after this thing until a parent comes looking for it.
It is definitely a little bit of jump to conclusions-y, but at the same time, they try and talk through some of the logic, and Neelix is like laying down facts of the animal kingdom, basically, to say, our scent could be on it, all this other stuff. The end result being that both Tom and Snarf begin to bond more over taking care of this thing. You know, they get it warm. They start to understand that it's going to need food, and that's when the big revelation as to what the purpose of the planet is. That is to say that it's this shit in the atmosphere that's making them scratch. That is essentially food for this baby alien, and they resolve that they need to get it outside and feed it so that it won't die. In the meantime, Voyager itself is essentially in a run and gun with this alien vessel to get close enough to beam them out, because they're going to have like a few minutes to be able to do it before, Snarf, and Tom are condemned to die of terrible rashes because they can't get to them.
In my head, I'm looking over the scene again. The fact that both Paris and Neelix seem to be closeted biologists who have an inordinate amount of reptilian knowledge at them. I just had the scene play out where, like, because they're kind of one-upping each other. Like, well, here's my argument, here's some anecdotal evidence, and going back and forth, and just get to the point where, like, what other goofy skills can they drag into this conversation, try and win thing. And I think this would have been a great opportunity for Paris to throw in some completely non-applicable ancient Earth automobile knowledge.
His knowledge of some 67 Chevys or something. Yeah.
Hit him with some truck facts. The shuttlecraft was a stupid idea, and they should have just done every other situation. If it's worth sending a shuttlecraft in, just take the goddamn ship. Save yourself the fucking hassle. Get the ship in there. Tuvok's plan about goading the aliens into firing because it's going to fuck up their back shield so we can tag them and take out their weapon systems works. They swoop in, start scanning. At this point, Neelix and Paris have gotten out of the death cave.
Yeah, they got out, and they have the baby, and ultimately they brainstorm a solution to saving it by essentially gathering up the atmosphere into a hypospray and spraying it into its mouth so that it feeds, and it works. And the little puppet, begins to move again, and all 8 of the people they employed for this episode earn their the deserved paychecks.
Its eyes flutter back awake. It looks at Paris and Neelix, yells "Not the mama," and bashes one of them over there with a frying pan. Classic 90s.
And you get a good rap scene between Neelix and Paris where they kind of talk out their situation, very real talky. They drop it and say, Neelix says, "You got a rep. People think you're this." And Tom's like, "Listen, I used to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy anymore. Nothing ever happened with Cass. Nothing ever will happen with Cass. But you were right to be concerned. I think she's hot, and I totally would be trying to bang her if you weren't here. But I respect you, and that's that. Ain't nothing ever going to happen."
The interesting part to this scene is it begins with Neelix saying, "I apologize. This has all been on me, and I've been the dick here." He didn't really start that with the expectation that Paris was going to meet him in the middle place and, confess up to some culpability in this as well. And you can see the hesitation in Paris when he's like, "I don't know if I should say this next part," but he kind of lays all the cards on the table and exposes himself to, basically rekindling the anger and the animosity. But in the end, the gamble pays off, and they finally bury this fucking hatchet, which is good. About that time, they start picking up readings that there's a life form coming, and they, assess it to be whatever this thing's species is. And what I thought was the, really impressive move. You said, breaking the trope, not seeing the alien before the end big reveal. This alien mask they bring out, it's a legit looking alien. Like, as good as this puppet is done up, like this lizard man who comes around the corner, I wouldn't say it's as scary as like Predator, but it is an ugly motherfucker.
I was very impressed by how monstrous this thing looked. We're used to some pretty humanoid, acceptable looking aliens on this show. Mm-hmm. It is not often that you get a bipedal intelligent race that looks super fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's got that the alien face where it's got like the fangs within the
mandibles.
Fangs, and
it's
nasty.
And you only get to see it for maybe 15 seconds. before, last minute. Well, actually, Voyager establishes communication, and Neelix begs Janeway to leave him there because, again, we got to see if the baby's going to be accepted and whatever. But yeah, they use this mask very sparingly, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that we never see this alien race again. So basically, this mask was created for a one-time use of all of 15 seconds, and it's impactful. I mean, it's a pretty potent looking mask. It works out well, and I like it.
It was the right amount of use of it. I liked that it was sparse. I liked that you just got one shot and you're like, ugh, these guys are fucked up. And then, it obviously cares for its young, and they're like, all right, time for us to go. Like, get us the fuck out of here. I don't want to fucking talk to this thing. This thing is nasty. There's certain first contacts that are not worth it. This is one of them. Let's go.
I did want to say, too, when Paris is having his hatchet bearing session, he does specifically mention that second chances are rare and that he wanted to make the most out of this. Okay, it's like they saw non sequitur and they're like, let's redo this whole thing. Like, all the takeaway points out of non sequitur are in this episode and 500% better than it with what appears to be minimal effort. So
yeah, it's you're absolutely right about that. This had all the emotional beats that I think that episode wanted to have. It had it with some of the same actors and pulled it off nicely. And I everything about Tom Paris in this episode, I really dug. Like, you get to know where he's coming from and what the score is with him, and you get to know him more than just kind of a sex fiend.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a man there, and he's very cognizant of the fact that he's got a rep, but he's embracing this second chance at life.
And I'll tell you what else. I found that alien Muppet Baby to be more convincing and realistic than Harry Kim's acquisition of that property in the Mission District. If you put both those things on the table and you said, tell me which one of these is bullshit.
Harry Kim living in the Mission. Yeah, absolutely.
That dinosaur is a real thing that is out there living right now, and it is 20-some years old. So yeah, fancy use of mass for the one shot. Something of note. So the Snarf, the shuttlecraft, they just leave behind, man. There's no mention of that fucking thing.
Yeah, I mean, Voyager gets pretty notorious for the fact of, like, how many fucking shuttlecraft do they have?
More to the point, though, again, as we discussed, the shuttlecraft is the most concentration of Federation technology out there. Warp drive, weapon systems, replicators, transporters. If the Federation's got it and you want it, it is present on that shuttlecraft. And they just leave these things out there for God knows who to scavenge and reverse engineer the tech or whatever. And, with all the attention on Kmart Klingons fusing themselves into bulkheads, it's a pretty big loose thread to leave hanging out there.
I agree. That's the kind of detail they always manage to not address. Yeah. So I kind of assumed they wouldn't, to be honest. I didn't even have it as a thought in my mind. I mean, you're right. You're completely right. But at the same time, I'm comfortable with those details being missed. I'm just used to it by now. I'm numb to it, I guess is the way I should say.
Par for the course.
But overall, the fact that this episode was like a C+ to a B-,
pretty impressive.
Was damned impressive based on the fact that it was using the bottom scraps of the available plot threads on the show. Like, of all the things that they gave Frakes to do, they gave him the shittiest possible shit to work with. And he said, here, let me show you my mostly acceptable 44 minutes of television.
I don't get it, man. Like, they're handing out the TNG alumni directors, LeVar Burton and Frakes. Like, what was Frakes' other one? It was
it's Projections. It was the A+ best episode we've seen.
Yeah, now that was a great script, but LeVar had what, 37s?
No, LeVar had the ex post facto. He had the noir story that just did not work.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'd be pissed if I was these guys. Like, come on, man. I'm here. We're Star Trek family. You guys are just giving you a fucking, like, what did Frakes say when he walked in and be like, okay, here's a script, and he's like, love triangle, a fucking Muppet Baby. Did he just, like, look up? Dude, was he sitting at the table with whoever's trying to pitch him on taking this thing and just fucking Chakotay lunge punch him Dobie style before, like, fuck
Belly
you.
punch.
I know you're trying to get me to renege on this contract so you can bust me with a breach of contract and not pay me. Fuck you. I'm not doing it. I'll take the job, and I'm going to make this shit sandwich. I'm going to make it good just to spite you guys. I'm going to show you that your worst, I can turn into some of the best.
I will say that it goes to show the power of direction, because we've seen all three of the actors that are featured on this episode be completely shitty in different times, and Frakes made all three of them shine without help, without like guest actors, just between them all. It shows how much a director can bring to the show, and improve the play of everyone around them. So good job. I'm sad to say there's only one more Frakes episode left for us to enjoy. He had 3 episodes in season 2, all of which started with the letter P. Fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. He flies off into the sexy sunset that only first officer gods can go.
Like I said, maybe they're pissed off he was making the episodes too good, and they just, even after trying to set him up for failure, and they couldn't, they're like, all right, he wins, get him out of here.
So what do we got next, Peter? What's next?
Next, season 2, episode 8, Persistence of Vision. And our screen card on this is Janeway cupping her hands over her mouth like she just watched someone back over a kitten in the driveway. The Voyager crew enters a new region of space and begins to see hallucinations. The captain sees her holonovel characters come to life.
Oh, no.
So here's what I'm reading is Space Madness meets Janeway's stepmother fantasy.
That sounds like what it is, man. I don't remember this at all. Fuck. Man, the heats just keep on coming, man. After I thought that first season was like, all right, we got through that. That wasn't so bad. Fucking season 2, dude.
How do we feel about Space Madness episodes?
I like them, generally speaking, when they're done well. But I guess I like anything when it's done well.
Yeah. I think in general, I don't like Space Madness episodes. I think they have the potential to be very lazy, cost-saving episodes because the plot now becomes the crew reacting to shit on sets that they've already, established. And I don't know. I got bad feelings about this one. Who is going to be the worst character in this upcoming episode? Well, who do we say is going to be the worst character for this episode? It had to be Neelix, right?
I think because we knew it was going to be Neelix and Tom, we both picked Neelix, which honestly, no, not true. I'd say there was nobody that was particularly bad in that episode at all.
I'd say, yeah, nobody was visibly bad. I'll give you that, sure.
But for this next one, Janeway's the obvious choice. Who'd be your second, though?
For the worst character in this episode, I'm going to say it's going to be Chakotay. I think he's going to bust out some Indian shaman, some incorrect portrayal of culture, and that there's going to be some, not him rolling his eyes, but him doing shit to make me roll my eyes.
I'm going to go with the Doctor. It's going to be the worst part of the episode. It's
a bold statement, sir. He has yet to deliver.
Yeah, he's yet to not deliver, but I need to go with a bold choice here. And, it's a Space Madness episode, so if a strong possibility he'll be involved. So let's see. Maybe this will be the one where he lets us down. I'm not hoping for it. I'm seeing the rhythm of the show, and he's due for a stumble.
Yeah. I'm going to flip the script on this one. I'm going to say I'm excited for this episode. We've talked about Starfleet insane coping mechanisms and expectations for people to return to duty despite the most horrific of events. I think this will be a good opportunity for us to further theorize into the misery that is life in Starfleet, that they somehow make everybody forget and convince other people to come put the uniform on and share that torture with them.
All right. I like it. I like that thought. Let's go in with positive thinking. Yeah. I like that.
All right. Rule of acquisition. I wasn't going to give this episode a rule of acquisition. I'm starting to run thin on these things, but having fleshed the episode out and the act of Neelix, putting his foot down, saying they're not going to leave Space Muppet alone, Space Muppet Baby alone, forcing Paris into this weird My Two Dads situation, 3 men and a baby situation, and the eventual payoff that they bond over the experience and finally get rid of this goddamn Kess jealousy thread. I give you the rule of acquisition number 9. Opportunity plus instinct equals profit.
I like it. I like it. Good application, sir. And on that note, we thank all of you for listening to VG Please, A Hateful Voyage through the Delta Quadrant. One last note, depending on when this goes out, we potentially apologize in advance of some awkward timing or missed week. Oh, totally on me, real life stuff in terms of my job. Very demanding, very specific time of the year, which I'm in. Peter, thanks for your flexibility. Hopefully this goes out on time. If not, I'll leave this in as a apology. And over the summer, we'll straighten out our production schedule, and I don't think we'll have any more problems. So until then, be peaceful in your journey through the Delta Quadrant.
Nice positive thinking. Very good.
I'm trying.